to support, to sustain, Samek. In the last 2 chapters, we discussed the end of 40 days' reign. The sun was in Ayin, and the narrative fittingly said that God closed the fountains. In Genesis 8 we read, God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided, and he closed the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the heavens, and the rain from the heavens was restrained. As our minds become accustomed to exploring this ancient calendar system, it slowly becomes more evident that it is a treasure trove of ancient knowledge. Even if we are unable to decrypt all the questions that flood into our minds, the time never feels wasted, as the knowledge gained is soon realized when other parts of this puzzle clip into their predetermined place. In this video, we will continue to investigate weather, winds, and temperature as we did rain. We will do this in relation to this calendar system. We must now step back 1 letter from Ayin to investigate the letter Samek. The letter Samek was found in the verb closed. Wait, I see a vav and a yod before Samek. The word doesn't start with Samek. In Hebrew, the root verb starts with Samek. The vav prefix is translated and. The yod before Samek is part of binyanim, or verb conjugation patterns. This next section is not about the letter Samek in Genesis 8, but rather the location of the letter Samek within this ancient calendar system. The record states, God caused a wind, or ruach, to pass over the earth. Let us have a careful look at the pen strokes of the letter Samek. Notice the top section has some partial resemblance to the letter Zayin. Samek is an unvoiced s sound, passing air through your teeth while your vocal cords remain silent. Zayin, on the other hand, is a voiced z sound, passing air through your teeth, yet at the same time your vocal cords vibrate. Hold your fingers on your throat and say s, z, s, z, s, z. The letter Samek traditionally means support, and it has the sense of to lean on something, to support, or to sustain with food. It is interesting that the acrostic psalms have preserved the traditional name and meaning of the letter. Psalm 119 reads, Uphold me according to your word, that I might live, and do not let me be ashamed of my hope. Psalm 145 reads, The Lord upholds all who fall, and raises up all who are bowed down. Psalm 111 reads, They are sustained forever to the age. They are made in truth and uprightness. And finally, Psalm 112 reads, His heart is sustained. He will not be afraid until he sees his desire upon his enemies. What season would it be then when the sun is in Samek? Would this be the time of year to prepare your household and livestock with food and shelter, to sustain and support them through the cold winter months? The Samek appears to depict a wind above with a support structure or a booth that is blocking the wind at the bottom. there are a few things that relate to wind. The narrative said, God caused a wind to pass over the earth. The letters Samek and Zayin may represent wind through the teeth. S and Z. Let us now investigate if Samek and Zayin relate to windy season. Zayin is in July. Isn't July near the end of the wheat harvest, when wind is used in the process of winnowing seed, or zera? Samek is in November. Is this the time of year when cold winds pick up and one seeks out some form of support, or samek, or a shelter or booth, a sukoth, to hide away from the cold winds? Now, Samek probably does not represent the Sukkot feast, because that was earlier in the year. Not to mention, the Sukkot feast is described many years after the flood. If this letter represents winds, we must understand that winds vary from region to region. We need to find a way to track down wind patterns in the region of Ararat. Eventually, I came across a document entitled Wind Energy Resource Atlas of Armenia. The data in the report is useful for finding optimal locations for wind turbine farms. It is hidden within this wind turbine research that we find a useful chart of the seasonal wind patterns. In an earlier video, we looked at Mem as a marker for the start of the rainy seasons. We found a way to calibrate the months in 2021 to the letter constellations in -2726 by using the fall equinox. This narrative had ingeniously marked out the fall equinox date 7 days before the flood. Now, instead of annual rainfall, let us use this annual wind speed chart. First, we will take the wind chart and flip it horizontally to match the order of the alphabet and the motions of the scrolling stars. Next, we add the equinox and solstice marks. Then, we align the Hebrew alphabet using these equinox and solstice marks. We move the sun into Samek and find it is early November, where the wind speeds pick up. We move the sun into Zayin, which translates to early July, where the wind speeds also pick up. It appears that the masterful design of this calendar system has left enough clues for us to decrypt some aspects of these two letter symbols. Samek, S. November, when the support shelter or booth is required to keep warm in the winds. Zayin, Z. July winds for winnowing seed, or zera. Are the winds similar in Jerusalem as they are in the regions of Ararat? In Jerusalem and Ararat, the November Samek winds both increase. However, the charts indicate that the winds pick up slightly earlier in the Ararat region. In the past, wind was utilized for the processing of wheat. First, the wheat was harvested. Then threshed. And winnowed in the wind to separate the grain from the chaff. The The location of the temple in Jerusalem was originally a threshing floor of Ararat the Jebusite, that is, for processing wheat and grains. How does this relate? Zion, in this calendar system, appears to fit well into the time for threshing and winnowing seed. As aforementioned, this is an attempt at decrypting an ancient alphabet calendar system. Even though it was easy to find the nebula shape that marked Zion, we are working on the letter Samek near the end of the flood rains. The wind in Genesis 8 seems fitting when the sun passes through the region of Samek before the fountains of the rain stop in Ayin. In terms of nebula shapes, I found Samek a bit more difficult to locate. Yet I don't want to be like that child who, when learning the alphabet, got frustrated, had a tantrum, and threw their pencil across the room. Just because it is difficult, it does not mean I will not attempt to guess. I thought to work backward, as Ayin was very easy to spot. The Ayin eye is part of a half face, where the left half is lit up and the right half is in darkness. Below the eye is the nose, and below the nose is the mouth. The shape of the letter may be trying to express wind passing through the support structure of the jaw's teeth, like the S sound. I found it easier to spot the modern Samek shape at the lips of the mouth than to spot the older Hebrew letter. The shape of the letter Samek. You know, when it gets cold enough, we start to see tiny clouds of breath in the air. From what I've read, these tiny condensation clouds require a temperature of 7 degrees Celsius or lower, accompanied with a particular level of humidity in the air. When the sun is in Samek, in Noah's day, it would have been early November. Someone who lives in the region of Upper Tigris and Euphrates will have to let us know if they can see these tiny breath clouds in November. Now, instead of rain or wind, let us consider temperature. What would the temperature trends be on November 30th, -2726, when the sun is in the letter Ayin? We will repeat the same calibration process, this time with a temperature graph. Notice, when the sun was in Ayin at the end of the rains, we find the temperature may have fallen into the range between 12 and 2 degrees Celsius. Hold this thought for a moment, for we must diverge to consider the times of the two annual extreme temperatures. Did you happen to notice the letters at the coldest and hottest times of the year? Kof and Resh. This means cold in Hebrew. Kar, Kor, Kara. Chet starts several words that relate to heat and hot. Cham, Chamum, Chom. We will revisit Kof and Resh in the next chapter. Now, back to the temperature at the time when the sun is in Ayin, between 12 and 2 degrees Celsius. Today, we are painfully aware that the Earth's overall temperature has been warming. This warming on Earth has caused glaciers all over the world to shrink, including those on Mount Ararat. Now, we have been using modern temperature graphs. Let's hazard a guess. If we shift the temperature down a few degrees to compensate for Earth's warming, it may be that at the end of 40 days, the temperature may not only be cold enough to see your breath, but it may have dropped below freezing, especially at higher elevations. From the start of the rains to the end of the rains, the snow line on the mountains of Ararat would have each day descended lower and lower toward the foot of the mountains. At this same time, around Samek and Ayin, the precipitation peaks, then drops off before it picks up again in the spring rains. In this video, we have compared the narrative and the alphabet to annual weather patterns. It can be embarrassingly simple that this calendar system contains the patterns for rains, winds, and temperature for the purpose of farming and survival. I leave you now with yet another riddle for you to solve.